When someone is accused of serious harm, the conversation tends to get polarized fast. People either condemn them or defend them because people tend to want a clear villain or a misunderstood soul. But here's the truth. Human behavior is rarely black and white. And even in cases of serious abuse, there tends to be a deeper pattern worth understanding. And this is not to justify it, but this is to help us understand it and to protect others from it and to help us understand how to stop it from repeating. So in today's deep dive, we're looking beneath the headlines, beneath the empire, beneath the violence, beneath the image, and beneath the unchecked fame. Today, we are looking at Sean P. Diddy Combs as a case study of what happens when early attachment trauma meets unchecked power. And again, I want to say this clearly, unhealed wounds are never an excuse for abuse, but they do help us understand why someone can rise to the top and still live in emotional chaos. And they can do this while hurting everyone closest to them. So let's begin. Attachment is how we learn to connect, to trust, to regulate our emotions and relationships. And disorganized attachment happens when the very people who are supposed to keep you safe also scared you. In early childhood, Sean P. Diddy Combs lost his father to gun violence. And that kind of trauma creates a nervous system that never fully settles. That type of trauma causes the nervous system to stay in a state of hypervigilance, always watching, always scanning, always trying to stay one step ahead of being hurt again. So what do people do when they can't feel safe? Those type of people, they try to control the world around them. And that type of control mixed with charisma, money, and fame becomes an empire. So what we saw in Sean P. Diddy Combs for decades was performance. They're big gestures, fast love, lavish lifestyle, emotional highs and lows. But behind the scenes, partners and former employees describe a very different story than what we saw. They describe manipulation, control, isolation, emotional reactivity. And this is where disorganized attachment becomes dangerous. Because with disorganized attachment, because love is seen as both something to fear and something to control. And with disorganized attachment, you don't get close because you feel safe. You get close to manage your fear of abandonment. And once someone gets close, that protector inside of a disorganized attached person becomes the very thing that pushes people away in protection of you. That protector punishes them or treats them as less than. And this is all in the name of protection. So the allegations against P. Diddy, particularly the lawsuit from Cassie and others, follow a disturbingly similar cycle of love bombing, escalated control, isolation, violence and intimidation, apologies and rewards, and repetition of the cycle. So this is not just abuse. This is trauma reenactment. It's a broken inner system trying to recreate the chaos it once survived. But now it's from a position of power instead of powerlessness. And it says in your head, if I can control the threat, then I can't be hurt again. But in doing so, it causes incredible harm to others. And this is how trauma turns inward pain into outward abuse. It's not excusable, but this is what happens when healing hasn't occurred. One of the reasons that this went on for so long is because P. Diddy was sheltered and hidden away. And because of that, people didn't hold him accountable. Instead, they praised his genius, his generosity, and his drive. But they also feared him. And in systems like this, people enable harm to stay close to power, and silence becomes their survival tool. And the more power that someone has, the harder it is to call them out on their dysfunction. And this is why trauma-informed accountability is so important. It's not just about punishing harm. It's about understanding how someone's unchecked wound can become a system of harm, and how we all collectively must learn to interrupt that system. And many people feel torn right now. You may have loved P. Diddy's music, and you may have seen him as a cultural icon, and you may be grieving the idea of who you thought he was. And that's completely normal, because when someone you admired is accused of harm, we have to then process our own attachment to that person, and we have to process our own projections of that person. We need to allow ourselves that time and space to feel that grief or that anger that we feel towards that person, and to say things like, I once looked up to you, and now I don't feel safe with what I know about you. And that kind of reckoning is what breaks generational patterns, and it's what prevents future harm. So what do we do with this information? What we do is we create space for truth. We hold people accountable, and we let the victims be heard. And we also ask deeper questions, like what happens when trauma is rewarded with power? Or what happens when we idealize emotional instability as brilliance? Or what does it mean when we love someone's work while condemning their actions? Most importantly, we reflect on our own patterns. And we ask ourselves, have I ever confused the intensity with love? And we ask ourselves, have I ever stayed in situations where control felt like care? And we ask ourselves, what does emotional safety really look like to me? Because healing doesn't begin with understanding others. It begins when you understand yourself. So thank you for going there with me. And thank you for your willingness to sit with the complexity.